Good afternoon, Campbell McCreary here, Amvest Capital, New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Silver One Resources. Silver One trades on the venture as SVE and on the OTCQX as SLVRF. Hope you enjoy today's program, and on-demand replay will be available after this in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/replays. Amvest, of course, is a New York-based investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. And please read this disclaimer. This call is for informational purposes only and is in no way a solicitation or piece of investment advice. We're pleased to have with us today Greg Crow, who's the president and CEO of Silver One. More than 30 years experience in exploration and mining, and many of you will know him for his more than a dozen years with Entree Gold and up until 2015, and transformed that company into something worth a lot to other people, and that of course was the area around Turquoise Hill and Oyu Tolgoi and all that. But welcome to the show, Greg, and please turn on your webcam.
Okay, Campbell, thank you very much. I'm going to share my webcam. Can everybody see the PowerPoint now? Okay.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks again, Campbell. Pleasure to be here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give, hit the highlights, I guess, because a lot of people have heard the story. I'll give a little bit of background just for those who are new to the story, but I just want to really hit the highlights that have happened over the last few months and where we want to go for the rest of the year and into 2022. So let's get started. And background for those, we started our company in mid-2016 with the acquisition of 3 Mexican silver projects from a company called First Mining Finance. That's one of the companies in the stable of companies run by a fellow by the name of Keith Neumeyer. You probably know him for his operating mines in Mexico and his company First Majestic. All the principals are big shareholders into Silver One as well. As time went on, we decided to look for something more advanced, and we targeted this project coming up on the screen, the past producing Candelaria silver mine in the state of Nevada. We entered into an agreement with Silver Standard in early 2017, and we have the ability to earn a 100% interest through an all-share deal with no royalties back to Silver Standard. We've been doing a lot of work on this project, so I'll be spending some time on that one. There will be some forward-looking statements in the presentation, so you can read this at your leisure. Now, not only am I going to talk about our flagship project called the Candelaria project, I'm going to then talk a little bit about another project in eastern Nevada. It is a high-grade epithermal silver, gold, copper vein system. We currently have a drill operating on that. We just started that drill program, probably going to be ongoing for the next 6 to 7 weeks. And so we should have news coming out periodically on the drill results from Cherokee. Phoenix Silver project is an extremely high-grade opportunity. We do have a drill permit in with the government seeking final approval, but they have been a bit preoccupied with forest fires, etc., and we have had some delays in getting that permit, but we expect it hopefully in the not too distant future. We'll see how that goes. We did a financing last year, 9.5 million. These are Canadian dollars. Of that 9.5 million, Eric Sprott, famed mining investor here in Canada, put in 5 of the 9.5 million, and that was the 3rd time that he had done a private placement into our company. Now, I'm not going to belabor the uses of silver. All I can say is that the prognosis looks good for silver in the medium to long term. Believe that with various factors, excessive debt, high stimulus spending by all governments around the world. We're looking at inflationary pressures, uses are growing, etc., that we anticipate a bright future for silver, particularly in the green industry, solar panels, electric cars, etc. That said, let's go and talk about the projects themselves. And I said I'm just going to really more or less hit the highlights, give a little bit of background. Candelaria, flagship property located in the western part of Nevada, just off the main highway that joins Reno to Las Vegas. And it was an early producer, 1864 up until 1959. Produced from near surface high-grade silver oxide veins. Underground mining produced at a rate of 1,250 grams per ton silver, which was very high grade, one of the highest grade deposits in the state of Nevada. Following that, up until 1997, it operated as an open pit mine, with Kinross being the last big company to operate the open pits. They shut it down in 97 to 99 with the collapse of silver prices following the Southeast Tiger Country crisis back in 1997. And they put it on, they started closure, did some reclamation, sold it off to Silver Standard 2001, 2002. Silver Standard did a drill program, outlined pretty sizable resource, and they did some met testing, scoping studies, but they determined that with silver prices still languishing well under $5 per ounce silver, that they would move on to other projects. We approached them in 2016, signed a deal in 2017 with the ability to get 100%. They were effectively rebranding their company. They were focusing on gold mining in Nevada. They subsequently have done a merger with a company with Turkish gold properties, but they were selling off a lot of their old silver projects, and they changed the name to SSR Mining. So we got a good deal on the project, all share deal, and the ability to get 100%. So what's this resource that they looked at? This was 43101 compliant, that's the Canadian reporting standards, but it is old now, so we must describe it as historic. It had measured and indicated historic resources of about 44 million ounces of silver, with additional inferred resources of another 34.5 million ounces of silver. But Kinross also left a lot of silver on the old leach pads. These are all in-ground, in situ resources, just on the northeast down dip side from the two big open pits. But on the leach pads, as I said, Kinross left a lot of silver in the leach pads. We drilled those leach pads, we've done metallurgical testing, and we put out an updated resource last year, 43101 compliant, on the heap leach pads. A big leach pad number 1 shown in this photograph, and then leach pad number 2 just behind the hill. Leach pad number 1 estimated to contain about 30 million ounces of silver. Leach pad number 2 about 15 million ounces of silver, all at an average grade of about 42 grams per ton silver. Now that's not too bad when you consider that this is material that's already been mined and is just sitting on the surface. So can we look at these leach pads as the first step in the rehabilitation of the Candelaria silver mine? And I'm going to talk about that and give you some ideas of how we want to proceed. But something to note is that there is an operating mine in northern Nevada. It is Coeurs Rochester mine to the north of Reno, and they are mining silver oxide ore, very similar to what came out of the big open pit at Candelaria. They're processing it on big leach pads, very similar to what was done at Candelaria. Their average head grade is only 15 grams per ton silver, and they're getting 50 to 55% recoveries. Can we make a go of 42 grams per ton silver on material that was once partially leached? Stay tuned, and I'll talk about where we want to go. First, just to mention briefly the infrastructure, it's excellent. Main highway joins Reno to Vegas, 2 miles of paved road past the 2 leach pads to the big 2 open pits. Northeast down dip side is where Silver Standard drilled that resource. We've got power hooked up. We pay our monthly power bills, 2 water wells, each capable of 500 to 700 gallons per minute. We've got all the ingredients required to potentially rehabilitate this silver mine. So let's talk about what we've done recently. Okay, let's look at the two big open pits. We've got the Diablo pit, we've got the Northern Bell pit. We did an early diamond drill program in 2020, and then we did a 15,000 meter reverse circulation, a little bit of diamond drilling in 2021. We just completed that a few weeks ago, put out all of the results, and there were three main objectives to that drill program. Drill objective number one, let's look at the down dip high grade opportunity. We're finding multiple hits in the hundreds of grams per ton silver, with some hits in the thousands of grams per ton silver, with good gold grades up to 1.5 to 2.5 grams per ton gold. And these are over widths up to about 30 meters. In some instances, the zones are hitting over 30 meters in width. We are believing that this is coalescing into a coherent body. Need to do a bit more drilling, which is planned for later this year when we can get a drill. But the idea is that for down the road, we'd be able to enhance the entire project by ramping down from the pit into this high grade zone. So stay tuned for that as it develops. The second objective of the drill program was to look for a long strike extensions to the easily accessible near surface open pit mineralization. We've extended the materials from the Diablo pit for up to 500 meters to the west, about 100 meters to the east, but it continues to remain open, and that will be the focus of some future drilling here later this year or early next year as well. But the important point is we are going to be doing metallurgical testing on this fresh ore, and the idea is, can we mix this easily accessible mineralization with the heap leach material in order to further increase grades and potential recoveries for an early start to a production situation. Now, there is a third objective to the drill program, and it was more blue sky exploration. We did a magnetometer survey about just over a year and a half ago, and this is what it came out as. Very strong magnetic high in purples and reds to the north against a very pronounced mag low in blues, greens, yellows, and oranges. The main structural control on the mineralization in the area comes right along that contact, and all the historic workings line up right along there as well. There's even an old past producing gold mine just off to the east of us, which was being drilled by Hochschild about a year and a half ago. So we're very keen on what is the upside exploration potential. But not only are we looking at silver oxide in the open pits with down dip high grade, we're looking at silver sulfide further to depth. And what's intriguing is we're finding copper in the form of very rich turquoise veins in the Northern Bell pit, and we're also finding materials on some of the old historic adit dumps that's running significant copper, silver, and gold. We did a drill hole here, we put it down, we intersected over 350 meters of a hydrothermal alteration system at depth that essentially looks to be the same type of alteration as a buried porphyry system. Not rich in copper yet, but we did get some interesting gold hits in that style of alteration. We put that news out a few weeks ago. So that'll be the focus of upcoming exploration. Can all of this mineralization here that we see on surface at Candelaria be sourced back to a big, deep, buried porphyry system? Don't know. Stay tuned, and we're going to continue with our exploration efforts. So here are some of those samples that we looked at. This is the material that came off the old dump. All the yellow there is chalcopyrite, which is a copper mineral. There's some of that good porphyry-related hydrothermal alteration with values up to 5-6 grams per ton silver over some narrow widths at depth. And what we want to do is we want to carry on. There's that sample again. It actually assayed 2.76% copper with 25 grams of silver and 0.67 grams per ton gold. So we're going to continue with our met testing. The idea is, can we mix the fresh, easily accessible pit extension material with the heap leach material? We want to look at the potential underground for future extraction opportunities, and then we want to continue to test for the underground porphyry-related system. And the idea is, can we put out an economic study by the end of the year? So that's what's happening at Candelaria. Cherokee project off to the east. Essentially, we targeted that because we had read about Cherokee having been a past producer in the thousands of grams per ton of silver, just south of a town called Pioche Old Mining Camp. Started out in high-grade silver gold epithermal veins. They got down into the host limestones and they hit carbonate replacement deposits with essentially zinc, copper, lead, silver, and gold. So let's go look at Cherokee. We found the Cherokee Mine sitting right here. We walked the vein systems for over 12 kilometers or 9 miles along strike. We checked the title, it was open, we staked all of the ground, and we bought the patents covering the Cherokee Mine, Southeast Cherokee Mine, and a water well just up in through here. The only recorded drilling in the area was down in the Blue Nose Viola area back in the 1980s, and they were targeting deep buried porphyry molybdenum mineralization. They never got through the overlying limestones, the same age limestones that host the Pioche mineralization to the north. So we are seeing on surface surrounding that area quite a bit of veining and alteration in the host rocks. So is there a buried porphyry on this project as well? So let's go look at some of the detailed samples on the Cherokee, Southeast Cherokee. Then we'll look at the hidden treasure area later on. Abundant surface samples on the vein. The vein on the patents itself has been traced for just under 2 kilometers along strike. That's just on the patents, but it extends away up here and continues off to the southeast. Surface values up to 954 grams per ton silver. 4.8% copper down here, 1100 grams per ton silver, 2.3% copper. This is classic epithermal boiling point zone style mineralization. A little rich in copper, but the silver grades are there. There's gold, but not quite as high as we see further down to the south in the hidden treasure area, where golds come into the system, copper values have fallen off, and with some select samples close to 1900 grams per ton silver and 2 grams gold. So we flew the project airborne mag survey. Interesting, big mag high. Could that be representative of that buried porphyry? Don't know yet, but zones of alteration, mineralization. Going to do some more work in the Johnny Hidden Treasure, Majoto areas they're developing. We want to see if we can get some good drill targets defined there. But as I said, we do have a drill currently operating on the patents at the Cherokee Mine, Southeast Cherokee area. So stay tuned for results coming out of there. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our final project that we're working on, Phoenix Silver Project, just outside the town of Globe. Some prospectors came to us early 2000. They had found some interesting silver nuggets using metal detectors, but the property is mainly covered by overburden, so there's no real outcrop. They pulled these out from under about 1.5 meters of cover. This one here weighed in at 417 pounds. We did not sample it. It is a collector's item, but we did specific gravity measurements, estimate to contain about 70% silver. So the project lies just about a 20-minute drive outside of Globe. Globe is known for its big porphyry copper producing area, Freeport, Moran. We've got BHP, Rio Tinto, old silver camp to the northeast with some silver veins produced in the 1800s, mid-1900s, and they had reported native silver in their vein systems as well. We did assay some of the smaller samples that were given to us, and this is all native silver. And this one here actually assayed an unbelievable 459,000 grams per ton silver, 14,500 ounces per ton. That's about 50% silver, which corresponds well with that 70% estimated silver on specific gravity measurements and multiple other samples as well. So our job is, can we find the source of these extremely angular and unabraded vein fragments, because they haven't traveled very far from their source. They would be well-rounded nuggets by now if they had. So what's interesting is we did surface geophysics, surface soil geochemistry, airborne geophysics. Here is where those fragments are found. We've got some interesting vein targets and going east, west, and northeast. We've applied for a drill permit for this area in through here. We will have some future target as well at the Mexican. We're finding more mineralization up and through here. And interesting enough, the mineralization down to the south seems to be a bit different. These veins are very old. They're what's called Precambrian Proterozoic in age, but we believe there's an overprinting from the much younger porphyry copper mineralizing system just across the valley that's being mined by Freeport, Moran, etc. And these veins up here are rich in copper, lead, zinc, moly, silver, and gold. And our neighbors immediately to the west are in joint venture with South 32 out of Australia. If you remember the Arizona mining story of a few years ago, they bought out Arizona Mining for $1.6 billion. They are drilling for porphyry-related mineralization on their project. So this is a very interesting project. Stay tuned for our drill permit coming. So what are we doing? Overall, just summing up, in Candelaria, we've been working away. We're going to be doing another drill program. We're doing metallurgical testing, mainly on the extension of the open pit style mineralization along strike. And the idea is, can we combine that with the heap material, think about an earlier production by increasing grades and recoveries. We want to put out an economic study, hopefully by the end of this year. Cherokee actively drilling, doing some more work on the surface. Stay tuned for that, coming out in the next several weeks. And then Phoenix Silver, waiting on a drill permit that's been applied for, and we'll continue to evaluate the other merits of the project as well. Still got about just under 11 million in the treasury right now. There's our issued and outstanding, good trading volumes on both the US and Canadian exchange. Eric Sprott, largest shareholder at just over 16%, and he participated in the financing last year and two previous financings prior to that. So he has been a long-term faithful shareholder in the company, as well as the main principles of First Majestic, etc. So that's really the update on Silver One, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending. And if anybody has any questions, let me know.
I've got some questions.
All right, Campbell.
Let's start with, do you have any thoughts on listing on having a higher US listing? So
well, we went from the pink sheets to the QB to the QX. Will we have a higher listing? I think eventually we would aim for that. Want to put a bit more asset value behind us before we do that, but I'd like to see that, yes.
Yeah, great. Phoenix, when do you expect to have it permitted?
Oh, I wish I could give you that answer. Essentially, all of the people, this is permitted through forestry, and all the people have been absconded and shipped off to various forest fires around the United States, and they are not doing permitting at this stage. So we're just waiting for them to get back to their day jobs, and hopefully it won't take too long after that. And we're entering the end of fire season here as well, so that should be good.
Excellent. Can you tell us talk a little bit about land tenure?
Can you be a little more specific? I mean, what type of land do we have? Is that what you're getting after?
Who owns it? Where did?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, let's start with the Candelaria project. The bulk of the mine workings are the open pits, etc., are on patented ground. The rest of the area is BLM. The ground around the heaps and the patented areas, the old processing site, etc., are still under permit from the Kinross days, and we've had discussions with the BLM and the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection. Both have been very encouraging. They've been giving us our drill permits in very relatively short times, which is great. They've said to us, this is an old active site. We'd love somebody to come in, restart it if you want, and just have a good reclamation plan in place and reclaim it at the end, and we'll be more than helpful to you. We see that your permits are still there. They need to be updated, but we anticipate that would be a matter of months, not years, which is very, very encouraging for these government agencies to say. So that's what's happening at Candelaria. Cherokee, apart from the patents that cover the Southeast, or the Cherokee and the Southeast Cherokee veins, the rest is BLM ground in Nevada, which needs to be permitted for drilling. That's why we started drilling on the patented claims. And then the ground on Phoenix Silver in Arizona, that's in the forestry, and so slightly different permitting, a little bit slower, but people are getting permit to do drill programs in that area, so we're very encouraged, and it's a very active mining area as well.
Talk about royalties on your property.
Okay, essentially the Candelaria project does not have any royalties, apart from one small little claim. I think it's, I can't remember where it stems back from, but I think Teck has it now. And it's a 2% NSR on a very small claim. We don't have any mineralization on that claim yet. So it's kind of a historic hangover, shall we say, to be dealt with down the road should we find a super big deposit. It's not going to upset the economics of any deposit by any stretch of the imagination. In essence, what we've got is there's no royalties back to SSR. The deal was royalty clean, so that's very good. Cherokee, we bought the patents, so there's no royalties. We have 100% clear ownership of everything at Cherokee. Phoenix Silver, there is a 2% NSR to the original prospectors, but it can be bought down. I think it's $1 million a point. So we can essentially, if it is as rich as we hope it is going to be, then that is an insignificant amount to pay.
Okay. People always ask, so
when
you can answer. No. How long to get into production at Candelaria?
I said when, so yeah, exactly. Well, as I said, I was kind of alluding to that. We want to put out an economic study, hopefully by the end of the year, if we get everything completed that we're trying to get done. Labs are not cooperating quite as fast as they had in the past. So let's try and still see if we can get that done. Once we get that economic study, we're going to have a better idea of how long. But we've had those encouraging discussions with both the BLM and Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, who said that, to reactivate those mining permits that are still in place from Kinross be a matter of months, not years. So maybe a year and a half, 2 years, if we're really, really lucky. That's a good guess. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Adam, want to have a crack? Can't hear you. There we go.
Take me a second.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for the update. Maybe if we could drill down, so to speak, at Candelaria a little bit. Best case scenario, year and a half, maybe to permit. But when is that? When do you guys start that process?
Well, as I said, we want to get our economic study out by the end of the year, and I'm going to be able to have a better answer for you at that time. Because then we really sit down and we say, okay, what do we want to do? What's the best timeline? And then we have to take that plan to the BLM, to the Nevada Department, and start the process. So, then we'll have the real discussions with them, and we should have an idea of approximately how long it will take.
You said economic study. Is that a PEA? Is that a PFS?
We believe that it could be a either or, and the reason that I'm being vague is because the heaps essentially were drilled. We've got all the Kinross data. They could go right to PFS, pre-feasibility study. That would not be an issue, but we want to look at combining some of that along strike silver oxide mineralization from the pits, which is near surface, easily accessible. The idea of mixing that material. Is the engineer going to say you need a little bit more drilling or you need a bit more metallurgical studies? So I'm only going to give you a PEA as opposed to a PFS for the whole thing. Don't know yet. So we're in those discussions right now.
Can you do one document where it's a PFS on the heaps and a PEA on the open pit expansion potential?
Yeah, we could. It's more time consuming. And it may not be as robust because if we can mix the materials, we're going to increase the grade and potential recoveries, which would make it a more robust study, shall we say. So, I mean, we could do that, but I'm not sure whether I want to. Let's just look at the timing and we'll get back to you on that.
And the material on the heaps, you have to move that to a new heap in order to process it?
Yeah, let's go back. And I'll just give you an idea. Okay, so we've got, well, I'll just start with leach pad number 1. The material on leach pad number 1 is approximately 3/4 of an inch in size. You know, they just took it out of the mine and crushed it a little bit and threw it on those heap leach pads. That process went on from the 1970s until 1997. 98 when they started shutting down the operation. So multiple generations of building these leach pads. Leach pad number 2 was later. Now what's interesting is what is the underliner under that leach pad number 1? Well, back in the early days in the 1970s, it was probably clay. It was probably not even an underliner. And then later on, of course, they had the good rubber underliner. So we don't know the status of that underliner. So what we're looking at is potentially as a first thought, and we'll see what the metallurgy comes out at the final months here. Looking at taking a portion of the heap, grinding it from the 3/4 of an inch down to about 2 millimeters, and then re-agglomerating it back up to a centimeter, which is just under, what's that, just about 1/3 of an inch, and then putting down a new little pad right beside it, and we'll do that, and then we'll take the next section, leapfrog onto a new pad, next section, leapfrog onto a new pad. So that's what we're looking at right now. The alternative would be just to build a new pad right here, period, and then move the whole thing, but the leapfrogging might be a better way to do it. And we'll wait and see what the engineers come back with as the best way.
Does the leapfrogging basically let you avoid, you know, re-permitting and save some time?
Yeah, or? Yeah, all this area essentially around the pits and coming out here in the leach pads, that's all under permit. So as long as we stay within that footprint, we don't have to apply for new permits. If we wanted to put a leach pad up here, say, we may have to apply for a new permit, but why would we do that? Unless we find a mega deposit, then we may have to do that, but that's a positive problem to have.
And remind me, Greg, do you guys have to build a new Merrill Crowe?
Oh yeah, we don't have any, all the equipment, if you look at the photograph, all the equipment essentially gone. You're looking at, there's a power station in through here. You're looking at the only existing building on site that we're probably going to replace, and otherwise everything else is gone from the old processing site. There are some old water tanks and there's some vats and tanks over here, but otherwise we'll have to build all that. Yep.
So the power, is there sufficient, is the old power line that would be potentially be sufficient for a new power line, for the new power needs, or you have to upgrade it?
probably need some upgrading, but again, we'll stay tuned and see what that comes out at.
All these issues are going to be addressed in this
We
study.
hope so. That's what we're counting on. And there's already from the main highway. The main highway sits right there, right in behind. It's kind of hard to see behind that printing there, but that's the 2 miles of paved road, and the power lines and the power poles come right up that roadway, right to this power station sitting right through here. So it's not like we have to put in a brand new power infrastructure. We just have to upgrade what's there.
And you know, what's the thought on the sulfide, the deeper sulfide that you guys have been hitting? What would that mean? Have you done early metallurgical work? Is that the kind of thing where you float a con and send it off?
One hole, Adam. With it took us by surprise that we actually hit 350 meters. Mind you, it starts at about 500 and some odd meters depth, but 350 meters of an intense porphyry style alteration, going from what's referred to as propylitic alteration at the top of the hole, going right down into good potassic alteration. And we're getting some good zones with a lot of pyrite, and we're getting some good zones with some interesting gold intercepts up to 5-6 grams per ton. So there's something happening down there. We don't know how extensive it is, but we want to continue to investigate to see is there potential for a porphyry. We're going to be doing probably a bit more IP and drilling some of the targets. We did drill mainly an IP target. The mag was interesting for us, but really what the mag led us to was the main structural control on the mineralization. And then what we ended up doing was just testing a couple of IP anomalies in this area in through here, and that's where we hit. We have some other IP anomalies sitting over here and over and through here that we want to test as well. So let's see what comes out of that.
Okay, Greg, because I thought you were, when you hit talking about the sulfide, I remember you said that the deep high grade oxide is extending to the east.
No.
I thought that's where the sulfide was.
No, the sulfide's over here in this hole. Okay. The extension of the silver oxide mineralization from the open pit is here and here, and then the down dip high grade.
The down dip, yeah, I assume that the down dip high grade was transitioning to sulfide. Okay.
It does transition into sulfides a little bit down dip, and that's more lead zinc sulfides with the silver. And but what's interesting is in the northern Bell pit, there are veins of almost pure turquoise coming up through the silver oxide zones of mineralization. These seem to be a little bit later in the sequence, at least these veins are. And these veins have been targeted by some of the local jewelry companies, and they are marketing it in their shops as Candelaria turquoise.
That's so, Candelaria turquoise, really?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So now, how they came to possess this, we don't know.
Oh, you know, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Greg, are you going to go to the Denver Gem Show coming up, and so you can see the Candelaria turquoise?
Yeah, I would love to, but I'm not attending Beaver Creek in person. I'm going to be doing that digitally. I haven't quite gotten my head around the still closed Canada-U.S. border situation. And I know some Canadians are going down, and I could go down. I'm just not ready yet. But towards the end of September, I should be out on the road. I want to do some one-on-ones. I'm supposed to do them in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. I'm supposed to do some in Newport Beach and LA, and then New York coming up in mid-October. So, and then if everything works out and COVID doesn't rear its ugly head, I'm supposed to be over in London and then Germany in October, November. So we're going to be fairly busy.
I think you need to get yourself a place in Reno, so you don't have to cross the border.
That would probably be a good idea, but we're not quite there yet.
Excellent, excellent. Campbell, are there additional questions from
just
the
one.
audience?
What's the drilling estimate in ounces on the leach pad per year?
What's the drilling
estimate in ounces on the leach pads per year?
I'm not understanding the question.
I don't understand it.
True.
But
Maybe he's asking how much you can produce from the pads?
Well, essentially, if we can produce from the pad, I can answer that question as a crude. We'd probably be looking at somewhere between 2 and 3 million ounces of silver per year. The pads themselves would give us about an 8-year mine life. If we can enhance that by extending and adding in some open pit material, then that will extend the mine life even further. And if we do get a lot of mineralization, the underground high grade, we could increase that amount of production on an annual basis.
Greg, does it make sense with the high grade oxide? Does it, if you're going to ramp down to the high grade oxide,
yep,
is it going to make sense to throw those on the pads, or would it make sense to have something, you know, some sort of a tank leach or something?
Well, we looked at, originally we looked at tank leaching, and that was the original study that we did with McClellan Labs out of Reno. And the idea was to take the material off the heaps and mill it down to about 200 mesh, and then do tank leaching. The problem is the capital cost, particularly when silver prices, when we did it, were $12, $13 an ounce, didn't make sense.
If you're talking about high grade, if you're talking about high grade,
high grade's a different story. And I agree.
Smaller. Yeah.
I agree. It would just take more time. We have to do more drilling to define a resource, get that out. Permitting for the underground mine might take a little bit longer. So we're kind of weighing that. When would we bring in? And, you know, that's a question we're going to put to our engineer as well, is when does he think that we would be able to bring in some of that high grade. If we can do it sooner than later, that's fine. I just think the permitting for that would be a little bit more lengthy than getting the heaps up and operating, and the some of the extensions to the open pit, which is on patented ground, shouldn't be too difficult.
So I'm sorry, Greg. So am I hearing from you that you are sort of going on the base case that, you know, when and if you get permitting for underground drilling and underground mining, you know, that high grade silver you'd still put on the heap leach pads?
Well, some of this is oxide, so some of it might go on the leach pads, but if there is enough there that would justify a fine milling and that operation, we could expand that whole system to include that. And then as we get into further down dip, if that goes into the silver sulfide related mineralization, then that's going to change again, and that might be a flotation situation.
It seems like maybe you could put that all at the same recovery, maybe all on the same little mill site there. And as you know, put in a finer grind circuit, you know, first,
yep.
and then put in some, and then, you know, again, you know, put in the float cells when you get there. And
yeah, no, eventually I agree. It's all a matter of timing. I mean, if we want to get into production sooner than later, the easiest thing to do is start with the heaps, maybe mixing a little bit of this material that comes off the patented claims.
Oh yeah, no, I'm saying
but eventually add all this in.
Yeah. Later, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Add it all in.
Don't wait.
Yeah, no, I don't want to wait either. That's why, you know, let's get the study out on what we can do earlier and then add it and advance as quickly as we can. Maybe as we're starting to develop the underground, we're already in production here and we're helping to finance the start of the underground. So that's what we'd like to do.
Now, Greg, are you guys considering using an HPGR just to take it down from the 3/4 to the 2 millimeters?
Yeah, we originally looked at fine milling, and I said the capital costs were a bit high. So the second that we did at Cassidy was HPGR testing that took us down to, it was actually 1.7 millimeters, not 2 millimeters. But
did you get there in one step from 3/4?
I think it's going to be 2 steps. Okay, I think there's going to be initial crush and then get it down from there to the 1.7. But we're also now looking at some new vertical grinders that
Yeah,
will
like
give
the
us the
vertical
same.
Hig, like the vertical Hig mill, like what silver, no.
No, that's a real fine milling operation. We're looking at just grinders. They have new vertical grinders that are much less costly than the HPGRs, and they are as effective as the HPGRs at getting that material down to those sizes.
What's the hardness of the rock we're talking about?
It's not too bad on the oxide, but as you get down a little bit, you're getting a bit more silica in the system. So, but overall, I think it'll grind nicely. That's what we've found so far. And wait for the engineering studies to come out, and they're going to talk about that with our updated met testing, etc.
What was Kinross? What was the hardness of the rock that Kinross was crushing?
That I don't have in the top of my head, but if you want me to find out, I can find that out for you.
Yeah, sure. Campbell, any additional questions from the audience?
No, we're good. That's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please share your feedback on your way out, either when you log out or in an email. And with that, Greg, I'll pass it back to you. Oh, and again, the replay will be available in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/replays. Greg, why don't you close us?
Okay, well, again, thanks to Campbell for organizing this. And if anybody has any further questions and they want to contact us, here's the contact information. Best guy to go through is Gary at Investor Relations. Talk to him almost every day. I'm sure he's getting tired of listening to me, but he's very, very efficient at dealing with a lot of investors' questions, etc. So anything he can't answer, I can get on a call or a Zoom call and address the answers. So thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Hey, take care. Bye now.